Now let's go on. So we can go on this turn. I've started recording. I think we can just start the podcast at this point.
Yeah, let's
and continue with the story.
So,
no, I mean, if you want to continue the story,
No, you're fine. Yeah, chill now.
So anyway, I was telling you, Jean. So for the viewers, welcome to ThinkShack.
Welcome to
where
ThinkShack.
we finally figured out what our tagline is.
exploring memes to their extremes.
Yeah, that rhymes. I've been rhyming to the whole of today. I think I'm on a roll because,
On a roll.
I remember, I remember when I was thinking about it, I was like, because like the definition of a meme, of course, the conventional definition is like it's a text, it's a piece of text, or an image or a video, usually humorous, that is spread about, on the internet, and that's how it goes viral.
Yep.
But also, generally speaking, a meme is just any fucking cultural unit. I don't know why I said fucking there, but anyway, it's a cultural unit, or like an idea or a concept, or like a system of behavior that gets spread through imitation. Not just in humans, but in any mammal. Actually, it's more among mammals, but really in any creature, right? And what we're doing here is we're talking about things that systems of behavior, cultural units, and concepts that are currently being spread around, or that have been spread around throughout time. So then I was like, how do I get this to rhyme? It was like exploring memes to their extremes. So that's what ThinkShack does.
So memes then, by that definition, includes what and what?
Well, I mean, by that definition, for example, putting your toilet paper, for example, a toilet paper holder, for those who use toilet paper holders, if you use water.
For those who use toilet paper.
For those who use toilet paper.
Some of you don't? We
Yeah.
can smell you?
Because it's actually healthier to use water, believe it or not. That's why the really, 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 really super rich have bidets.
I believe in using water, but then what do you use the water with? Your hand? I mean, yes, there's the bidet and everything. But then, like, what if you don't?
So, for example,
Carry a bottle of Quentin.
that is a meme. There is a meme amongst certain sections of the population that, ascribe to certain religious beliefs.
We're not going to mention them.
To wash their anal sphincters after defecation with their hands, and then they go and wash their hands. That is a meme because it is a system of behavior. It is a unit of culture that has been spread through imitation. In this case, the very first like progenitors, to use a fancy English term, of this particular system of behavior would be the founding father of the religion.
Those of you who speak European might understand that.
Exactly.
Progenitor.
Exactly. Or for example, if we come back to people who do use toilet paper, I mean, how do you put your toilet paper on the toilet paper holder? Do you put it so that you pull the toilet paper from the bottom, or do you put it so that you pull the toilet paper from the top?
That is legit a pet peeve of mine, actually. I think you should pull it from the top. Oh my god. Oh, and then women, I found that women actually
People do not agree with you already in this room.
women like it from the bottom.
What do they like from the bottom? Because
We're talking about tissue.
are we still talking about toilet paper?
Let's come back to what we were talking about. So we're talking about the tissue going over or under. I found the women really anal, in the pun, about
Yeah.
going under with tissue paper.
That's
No.
an interesting thing because like
study.
is there like any kind of research out there about like what differences there are between the sexes as concerns their preferences for where to pull the toilet paper from? Okay, let me just do a quick Google search. Do men and women prefer the toilet paper from the top or bottom? So I'm just typing this into Google.
This could be a deal breaker for some people. Like you go to a wedding negotiations, like how do you put your
Yeah.
paper?
Yeah, and they're like, oh, she pulls them from the bottom. I'm like, nope. Sorry, I'm not marrying that woman. That is unacceptable.
That's from the streets.
Yeah. Okay, so the over-under issue is surprisingly controversial, obviously. And it was allegedly the topic that generated the most letters to some column. I'm reading an article right now called Dear Abby on a single subject.
We're gonna link that in the description.
So according to science, apparently, the correct way to hang toilet paper is over. Because
There you go.
under vastly increases the possibility that food poisoning bacteria
What?
will spread from the restroom to the rest of the workplace or home.
How does that work?
I know, right? So a recent
coordinate.
study conducted at the University of Colorado. I love how when you read an article, it's like a recent study. You're like, this article was 10 years ago.
2005.
Like, what the fuck do you mean recent? But anyway, a recent study conducted at the University of Colorado
Recent to that.
revealed that even an apparently clean office restroom is a dirty petri dish. So using a high-tech genetic sequencing tool, researchers identified 19 groups of bacteria on the doors, floors, faucet handles, soap dispensers, and toilets of 12 public restrooms in Colorado. 6 men's restrooms and 6 women's restrooms. Many of the bacteria strains identified could be transmitted by touching contaminated surfaces.
Now back to what I was saying earlier. Like I'm
Right.
not an evangelist of using tissue paper, but let's just examine the whole practice of using water in your hands to clean your
Yeah.
nether region. So what you're doing is, yes, you're gonna, I guess, clean your.
No, but just
your
before we get there, let me just finish this point, right? So the reason why under is worse than over is because if the toilet paper is hung over,
low contact.
you're going to touch only the toilet paper when you're pulling it. But if it's hung under, there's a high chance you're going to touch the wall, which means you're going to spread the bacteria from the wall to the rest of the house.
Now you see.
Now, this doesn't tell us why women prefer under, but it does tell us why under is worse.
There we go. It's been proven, guys. Change your habits. Change your habits.
It's true. Yeah. So anyway, you were saying something about like.
So I was
using
saying like
water.
the whole. Okay, I was gonna go somewhere different with that because I was saying like you're cleaning your ass with your hands, whatever, but then you're getting the sink dirty with your ass residue.
I mean, you're gonna get the sink dirty with something eventually. That's the whole point.
It
of
better
the
not be
sink.
shit though. Like
I mean, let's think
Yeah,
about it.
but then-
Okay.
as well clean
I personally think the whole hand thing is, to be entirely honest, neither here nor there. Simply because if we are going to be quite honest about this, your hands have touched some of the dirtiest shit, even without you cleaning your ass.
but it was by choice.
I mean, cleaning your ass is by choice too.
It's by necessity.
Yeah. Personally, as someone who grew up, because I grew up Muslim, actually, as someone who grew up washing their hands,
So you're a former
washing their ass with their hands, yeah, exactly. But as someone who grew up that way, I would say that for me, it's not so much like a medical or scientific thing that made me not want to do it. It's just that I found it disgusting. But if I'm being entirely honest, the disgust was just because I was cognizant of the fact that I had previously, touched my ass. But like,
Interesting.
as far as like the actual dirt is concerned, I mean, I don't know. I've put my hand in some really messy places, whether by choice or not.
By
So,
choice,
and things generally are really dirty places, and that's what they're for.
I used to see this stat that actually said the keyboard on a laptop is actually dirtier than most public restrooms.
Exactly.
Although I feel like some
But
of
what do
these
they mean when they
results-
say dirtier? Do
Probably
they mean that it has
bacteria.
more species of bacteria or more bacteria
There's a
per
whole-
square inch?
ecosystem? There's like villagers. There's furniture makers.
Yeah,
bacteria
like an
kingdom.
entire civilization. I actually find such statistics really hard to follow because when they say something is dirtier, because dirty is a very vague term,
course.
Like I've seen someone go around and say that we found that this substance was more toxic. But what do you mean by more toxic? Does it mean that it causes more infections overall? That it's causing more of a particular infection? You get what I'm saying?
On the definition.
Yeah, exactly. But when it comes to using hands to clean yourself in the toilet, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't have a horse in this race. It's neither here nor there. For me, it was just like because I kind of like at some point I was like I'm not into this religion thing. But like for me, I just decided to use tissue paper because A, was more convenient, and B, quite honestly speaking, as a former Muslim, it felt a little disgusting. But like I don't know, scientifically, I don't know that it's better to use toilet paper scientifically than your hands and wash your ass.
I feel like I've shitted on that method so much, pun intended. But then the thing is, I mean, if you think about it, it's probably better for the environment if you use your hand. Like just to play devil's advocate, it's probably better because you use less paper, right? Imagine how much paper goes to waste. Like if you didn't have to use tissue, if we all just use our hand, all just color the word brown with our hands.
Okay, well, I mean, the trade-off is you use more water, though. So, I mean, let's think about it. Is it okay to use water, to use a little more water to clean your ass? Does this have any significant effect on the
think so.
world's water supply?
Because the water we use in the bathroom, I think on average a toilet takes about 20 liters every flush.
Right.
And that's where you get these things. I digress, but then that's where you get people with these beliefs that when you pee, you shouldn't flush the toilet. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be.
The colloquial term is if it's yellow, let it mellow.
I didn't know there was a whole culture around that.
If it's brown, let it drown.
That's clever.
You've never heard that?
Now there's something new today. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not to see though.
Which kind of like confuses you if you shit yellow shit.
What if you drink a lot
Like,
of water?
should I let the yellow shit mellow, or should I let my brown pee drown?
With brown pee means you have a UTI, doesn't it? Or super.
I have bigger problems than whether or not I should flush.
Yeah,
If I have
like-
brown pee, I have much bigger problems to think about right now.
No, you have Coca-Cola piss.
Exactly. But anyway, so like, just going back to the general conversation, this is an example of a meme, and these are the things we talk about. So, for example, we might talk about trending topics, or the latest things that happen, or a behavior that Kenyans have. Like the last episode, which FYI I haven't uploaded to YouTube yet.
But it's coming soon.
Yeah, we talked about like how street kids or street adults. I don't know why street adults is not a word.
That's gonna be a banger.
Totally a word. But we were talking about how street adults, when they come up to you, they threaten to smear shit on you. You know, like there's a lot of shit in this episode, by the way. They threaten to smear shit on you. But that's a meme because it's a system of behavior that you see on Nairobi streets, and almost everyone in Nairobi can relate to it, and that's what we're talking about.
That's brilliant. So
Exactly.
you guys get the idea that memes are more than just pictures with captions.
Exactly. Actually, if we're gonna be really super geeky about this, it's not just that memes are systems of behavior that can be spread through imitation, but you can actually model the behavior of memes much like you can model the behavior of, say, bacteria or viruses, because memes spread much like a bacterium or a virus might spread. It's just that they use the medium of our minds to spread through mutation. Memes mutate. You see like a meme on the internet, and then someone adds an extra picture or twists the words a bit, and then the new meme is a mutation of the old meme, and some mutations are more viral than others because some spread faster. Memes mate. Sometimes you can mix one meme with another meme and get a new meme that has qualities of both memes that is even more viral. Memes also, they have this tendency to piggyback on other memes. So for example, in humans, we have this tendency where you might find that maybe, I mean, and I'm making this shit up, I'm pulling it out of my ass, just using
We
examples.
pull a lot
There
of
are any
shit examples.
like molecular biologists or geneticists in the comment section, please feel free to correct me and give more accurate examples. But I'm just gonna give an example. Like let's say the gene for blue eyes, for example, right? You might find that the gene for blue eyes, quite frankly, does not necessarily give you any survival advantages, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not necessarily gonna make you survive and reproduce.
There's actually a name for those. I forgot what those traits are called, but then there's a name for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like some random shit that happens. Like you're born, you have a mutation, you have blue eyes. But let's say
You have weird
that,
eyebrows.
that it just so happens that a lot of the people with blue eyes also happen to be tall, which can give you an advantage evolutionarily,
Maybe
right?
their eyes are blue because they're closer to the sky.
Maybe. Exactly. Maybe the eyes are reflecting the skylight. Exactly, right? So you find that if you're taller, because generally the female humans, women prefer taller people, then taller people get to pass on their genes, so they also pass on the genes for blue eyes. So overall, over time, the population also has blue eyes. But if you think about it as an evolutionary biologist, like this doesn't help with survival. How the fuck did this trait get to proliferate? But it's because it piggybacked on something else. So sometimes with memes, you might find that there's a particular meme going very viral. Like for example, the one thing I remember, if you're a millennial, you remember the but with aromat.
But with aromat?
But with aromat, right? It was really cool. Like this thing really spread. And then people decided to piggyback off of that to spread the whole thing about like glow ups, right? Like if you look like this, but with aromat, you look like that. That's one meme piggybacking on another. And so if you think about it, memes kind of like exhibit the behavior of living organisms. It's just that it's highly abstract because they're not actually living organisms. But the way they spread from one mind to another is very similar to the way a virus might spread from one body to another.
Memes are deep.
Memes are deep. I love them. In fact, if you really dive deep into this, you'll realize that memes are probably the reason why guys like Donald Trump won the 2016 election.
Do you think so? What was he posting? Was his campaign like all about memes?
No, it's
don't
not
remember
so
that
much
time 'cause it
that,
was so long ago.
Donald Trump's campaign was all about memes as it is that throughout the campaign, people kept talking about Donald Trump. They kept making fun of him. He had like certain like qualities that made him unique, that made him like constantly occur in your, repetition kind of like convinces you over time. If you keep hearing a certain name, you keep hearing a certain, he's the orange man, he has this, like over,
Closer to home.
yeah, over time, he's gonna like stick in your mind, right? Or like for example, to bring
closer to home,
to bring it closer,
Wajakoya.
exactly, Wajakoya. I mean, Wajakoya didn't win the election, but you gotta admit that nigga, without much of a campaign budget, he managed to win the hearts
Let
of
me tell you
Kenyans for
something
different
about
reasons.
from someone who was actually on his campaign. On one part of his, I'm gonna mention names or anything. He mentioned something quite interesting to me. He was like, "That guy doesn't do weed." His campaign, what was his running mate actually does weed, and she looks like it. But
What am I? Just
yeah, she looks like she does weed. But then what
she looks like it, but is there verifiable evidence?
what
she
the
actually
Koya does weed? I don't know. You could tell by her eyes. She has weed eyes.
From one weed lover to the next.
Yeah.
I know you do weed.
I can see it in your eyes. I can see.
Justina's coming for us.
I can see the experience.
Justina, we have nothing against you. We have something against your eyes.
Yeah,
Your eyes are fucking beautifully red.
yeah. So what the Koya doesn't actually do weed. It was more like do anything for clout, basically. And it works to a T. Like everybody was talking about. I mean, he didn't get elected. He was never going to get elected. But
Right.
in the next campaign, he's probably going to get a parliamentary seat or something like that because, I mean, he's made a big enough splash. People are like, okay, this guy has some interesting ideas.
I had quite a few conspiracy theories that Wajakoya was like an agent.
When you say agent and conspiracy theories, all I hear is dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, exactly. The X-Files.
See Wajakoya with the do-rag and then the
Right, yeah.
007
And it's
camera lens.
receiving like a dossier on like, like these are your targets, this is what you need to do. I need you to run this kind of campaign. But the idea is that we had Ruto on one side and then we had like Raila on the other. And I'm not going to go into the details, but like, assuming Kenya is a 50-50 split between the two,
Yeah.
if you introduce a third party, they can easily steal votes from one of these two.
For real.
Exactly.
And
right?
shift the balance.
Exactly, and shift the balance. So then you have it harder for one person. Because like if you have like roughly 50-50 support for both candidates.
0.001 could make the difference.
Exactly. So what you really need, now the argument becomes about like not about how many votes you can garner, but how loyal you can keep your people, right?
And how many you can take away from the opponent.
Exactly. How many people who are loyal to Raila could easily be swayed to vote for Wajakoya versus how many people who are loyal to Ruto could easily be swayed to vote for Wajakoya. Depending on the balance of those, one of those wins and the other one loses. I mean, I'm not saying that Wajakoya was, like the ace in the hole or like the ace up whoever the fuck was doing this is sleeve. But like, at least it was one of the many factors they were using to like, mash things up and throw a spanner in the works to try and move things in a certain direction. But this is a conspiracy theory. I have to add that.
Previous elections were quite interesting, though. Like moving out of conspiracy theories, it kind of shows you the disparity there is, the gap there is between what you see in the media, because the media mainly is for young people, and then
Yeah.
you see on the ground. Because if you were following the memes, the videos, and like all the media hype, you would have thought Raila was definitely winning, and most people are gonna vote for him.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, notwithstanding all the controversy that still surrounds the
Surrounding over whether votes were stolen, whether
That's-
forms were duplicated or forged.
that's debatable. But then when you realize, you see that the people, there's a big divide between, I guess you could say, the youth and then the older generation. And politicians play into that.
Which is interesting because every time I've had this debate with people, they're always like, hey, what you see on social media isn't representative of what's actually happening on the ground.
True.
But then I think about it for a quick moment. I'm like, okay, what's actually happening on the ground? And then the argument I usually hear is that older people are likely to vote in this particular direction because older people still listen to radio. Older people still watch like shit TV channels.
They go
never
to
even
the
knew
rallies
existed
and stuff like that.
whatnot.
When you hear a rally, you're like, oh, fuck.
But then
alone.
I also know that Kenya is largely under 35. Like if you look at the proportion of the population. So then it's either we have a lot of youth that just simply are not as informed or as exposed as we think, or I don't know, we have a lot more older people as a
Pulling the
proportion
strings as well.
No, not pulling the strings per se, but voting as like if like 20% of youth vote and 80% of like people over 35 vote, then the results are going to be skewed towards whatever the older people preferred, even though population wise the youth are more. You get what I'm saying? 100%. So either we have like a lot of youth voting like how you would expect older people to vote, you know, like along tribal lines, along like propaganda lines and shit, or we don't have enough young people voting.
Here's an interesting thought. You know, young people, we try and model ourselves off of the older generation. You want to seem like you know what you're doing. And that's why I think Wajako didn't get a lot of votes. Despite being popular in the memes, you would think some youth would be like, let me be different. But then they don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to throw my future away. So they vote like old people. It's because it's like, oh, my mom likes Ruto. My mom likes this particular politician. So there was a lot of influence that you might have not noticed. Like elections basically are influenced by more things than you see.
Right.
And it's not necessarily like there's an actor at play like trying to pull the strings or whatever. It's
right.
just the dynamics of society. But moving away from that, you said something about memes, and you're like, they're like bacteria that go viral. And I remember there's this story, I'm not so sure if it's true. There's this, I don't know if it's conspiracy, but something was leaked about the scientist over at Pfizer.
Yeah.
From Pfizer listening to a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a new thing that went on, right? So there is this, they call themselves a journalism enterprise, quote unquote. Actually, you can donate to their cause because they probably survive entirely off of like public donations. But they're called Project Veritas. Veritas, if you don't know, is I think a Latin term meaning truth. Exactly. So Project Veritas is a journalism enterprise, I guess, based off of their name, is dedicated to finding the truth. And in a sort of like what is called leaked video, this guy from Project Veritas was interviewing or talking to, I mean, I don't know if the guy
was he undercover by the way?
What?
Was he undercover? Was he saying I'm from Project Veritas?
I mean, from the camera angle, it looked like it was undercover because the camera was like, I'm under a table.
Sure,
and
you know
exactly.
that Dicho Pevo angle.
Exactly. And you're like, does this guy know is being recorded? But yeah, so he was like interviewing this like director of research at Pfizer. Pfizer like this big drug agency that has been manufacturing vaccines.
You probably heard of them, or you probably even took their vaccine.
Yeah, there's the Pfizer vaccine, there's the Moderna vaccine, there's like a whole bunch of them, right?
But Pfizer wasn't successful in Africa because I think it was the first one. So people were like, oh, this is the birth control pill, the Antichrist. There's so many versions of Antichrist. People said 5G is the Antichrist. Like, how does it work?
Everything except the actual Antichrist is the Antichrist.
What is the Antichrist?
The thing about the Antichrist, I feel like
finishing move.
I feel like it's a meme. It's a meme, right? So the concept of the Antichrist is a meme because it's very comforting. Every time you see something that you feel is gonna cause an upheaval, whatever cultural status quo currently exists, you call it the Antichrist. So like the four horsemen of the apocalypse or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You're like, oh, the world is ending. Jesus, come down now. So Pfizer probably fits perfectly into that, right? Because the COVID-19 vaccine definitely shook a lot of people up. And like this guy is having like a sort of like, you know, scoop on the inner workings of Pfizer. And he's interviewing this director of research. And the director of research basically just summarize the video, which by the way, we can put in the description and maybe even post it on the channel and just link to it and so people can watch it and get the sense of it. But the director is saying that they're kind of like doing these experiments over at Pfizer. And when I say director, I'm saying because I didn't know, this is an unverified video.
A worker, a staff member?
No, he is supposedly a director of research. I just don't know if he is actually a director of research because that's what they claim, right? Because it's an unverified video. I think his name is supposed to be something along the lines of Jordan Tristan Walker or something, you know? And this guy is saying that they are purposely mutating the COVID virus in the laboratory in order to sort of like figure out all the different ways it could mutate, like all the different strains, so that in case these naturally occur in the world, they can make the vaccines for them, right? Or they will have made the vaccines, then they can start selling those vaccines.
Question the intent that it makes you it raises questions about the origin of COVID to begin with.
Right.
Because if people are doing these experiments, obviously they benefit a lot from getting the vaccine and stuff like that. Right. This is a huge conspiracy, but like there is some conspiracy theories that purport that COVID was actually created in a lab. And when you get scoops like this, it makes it a lot more palpable.
Right. So one particularly interesting thing here, and this will need like a sort of like quick lesson, definition of terms.
Should put some quick lesson music. I'll do it as you talk.
Yeah, exactly. We really need to get an editor to do all of this shit, because like if we had like a whole production team behind this, like this content would be so much more interesting.
Let's go for it. I'll do the music. You go. You are about to give us a quick tip.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna do, like if this assume is a cutaway and I'm telling you guys. So one particularly interesting term you need to understand here is the term gain of function. Now, gain of function is when you take an organism and you mutate it in such a way that it has an extra function they didn't have before, right? And the thing about gain of function research is that usually it's considered sort of like dual use, which means that it can be used for civilian purposes or for military purposes. You can easily mutate things so that you can use them in biological warfare, or you can mutate them to create better medicine for people.
Let me stop you for a second. I'm so scared for the future of Africa because we have weapons from 1970, most countries in Africa. People are out here working on biological weapons. And we could get most of the time we're probably going to be either the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
I think if you're listening to this and you're in Africa, prepare yourself. Choose your side. Are you going to be a guinea pig or are you going to be fighting the revolution?
Yeah. I think the more important question is, do you even have the luxury to choose a side? I mean, you go to the chemist and you buy generic drugs. You don't know what the fuck they put in them. It's just like, oh yeah, this cures my fucking flu. Is flu
something to
Where did that flu gun come from? Oh, you got that girl, you had sex with that girl and you don't want her to get pregnant. You go get peachy. You don't know where that peachy came from.
Something to think about as you take your PT.
Yeah, I kind of feel like in Africa, we're kind of fucked already because a lot of the shit that we take, we have no control over, and we're kind of like getting like the throwaway shit that the rest of the world just decides is not good enough for them.
P2 is probably
Africa.
P1, like the original version of P2.
Exactly, right? So like the whole idea behind gain of function research is that because of its potential dual use, it's heavily regulated, right? So a huge controversy surrounding like the whole COVID thing is that it possibly came from not even the Pfizer vaccine thing, but like how COVID originated is that it probably came from gain of function research in Wuhan, which is where it originated. It's like it leaked from a laboratory, and it was actually a lot of the conspiracy theories say that it was sponsored by the U.S. government.
I wouldn't put it past them. Them and China, they could literally do anything.
So now, what Pfizer is doing, remember, I want you to remember a very important point here, and is that gain of function research needs to be regulated simply because it's potentially dangerous. So what Pfizer is doing, or at least what we are led to believe by this video, is that Pfizer could possibly be doing gain of function research. And somewhere in the video, the guy even asks the supposed director of research, so this is gain of function research, and the director of research says, actually we would rather call it directed evolution, which sounds like double speak. It's like directed evolution is just a fancy term for gain of function.
You could dress up anything and make it sound nice.
Exactly. You can call it ablution after defecation, which is washing your ass and taking your shit. While we're coming back to that,
Ablution after defecation.
I'm abluting myself. So
ablution first. You go to a restaurant, you're like,
where are the ablution facilities?
I would like to ablute my hands before I begin.
Why are we using the Lua accent? Why? That's a meme too. But that's a meme too. Like Luas are associated with extremely complex English. That's a meme. Kisses, on the other hand, I'm not going to talk about that.
But that's a meme too.
That's a meme too. Exactly. So we're just talking about memes. So anyway, so the whole idea behind gain of function is that it needs to be regulated. So this guy is basically admitting, even though he uses like flowery terms, that Pfizer is conducting gain of function research behind the scenes because COVID is a sort of cash cow for it. Now, this obviously raises a whole fucking can of worms because, why are they doing this? And actually, the guy says in between, because the guys were regulating us, when they retire, they end up getting jobs at Pfizer anyway. There's a government period. It's like the way, like guys in the military end up getting jobs in private security corporations after they retire. So, like, if guys in, like, the NIH, the National Institute of Health in the U.S., or like the what do you call it?
IRS.
The IRS is the tax body, but like
about the medicine thing.
Yeah, so like I was gonna say the food thing. I kind of forgot their name. But there's like a food regulating body.
It's called the Food Board.
It's not the food board. I remember I used to like write articles about this in my dark days as an online writer.
Safety? Whatever. I don't know.
I mean, I'll look for that name, but yeah,
whatever. It was just there. But yeah.
Exactly. So like the USDA is the United States Department of Agriculture.
So
those are the ones that are even responsible for coming up with the food pyramid from like back in the 1950s.
Guys who are supposed to be regulating gain of function research are actually they have vested interest.
So they would be very lenient on such organizations. But
Yes,
I need to throw this little fact in there that this video is unverified, so we don't know it's a conspiracy theory, but it's quite interesting, and it's quite scary. Yeah. So like that's the idea, and a lot of people, of course, out there are talking about how we haven't heard the last of COVID, or at the very least, we haven't heard the last of pandemics.
Did you get vaccinated, by the way?
I did not.
Well, you haven't heard the last of COVID, but I hope to God I have. Never want to hear about COVID.
To be entirely honest, I've never even been tested for COVID, so I don't even know if I've ever had COVID.
You've not heard the first?
I have never, I've got sick, of course, lots of times since the COVID pandemic officially started, but I cannot say whether I actually had COVID or any.
Here's the crazy part. Like, I actually got vaccinated, and after I got vaccinated, that's when I got sick.
What happened? You got sick with COVID?
Legit? I got sick with COVID. I got Omicron. Well, then, truth be told, I was being...
Oh my God, how long did I just see shift away from you?
No, I got it and I lost it. I mean, right, like I said...
Don't say to I.
Feel the COVID.
I mean, this was supposedly something that already ended.
No, I wasn't even diagnosed. I'm just saying. Maybe that's a meme too. But here's the thing. I got vaccinated with the Moderna vaccine. First injection was okay. Second one felt like garbage.
So it was about the Pfizer stuff. So so it's a whole conspiracy theory. And a lot of it is unverified stuff and all, but it just raises a general conversation about what's going on in terms of laboratory experiments around viruses and pandemics.
Might not be I don't know. I've always been. I've not been. I mean, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking at? Too skeptical, superstitious, or too much into conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always felt like you should refrain from using too many drugs, like over-the-counter stuff. I know there's people who they get a small migraine, a small headache, and then be like, I'm gonna go get drugs from over-the-counter. But really, if you think about it, how much do you know, how much of it do you know is going into your system? Like, if someone was asking, what are the ingredients of a paracetamol tablet? Like, what is in there? What is the intended effect? No, I just take it for malaria. I just take it for this. What is P2? What is it doing? Right? Nobody knows. So I think the less of it you take, and I feel like things like this coming to the limelight or coming out will be better because people will start to take more, be more conscious of what's going into their system.
No, but that kind of raises a different can of worms though, right? Because for example, I would love to be absolutely judicious about the things I take into my system, although I am not. I take all sorts of drugs for all sorts of reasons, right? But what I was trying to get at is if I decided I do not want to take the vaccine, hypothetically, not actually hypothetically, technically, legally speaking, I have no freaking right to refuse the vaccine. It's a legal mandate in Kenya that we should all take the vaccine. I have no right to reject the vaccine because I don't know what's in it. I don't want it in my body. So that kind of raises a whole dilemma. How do I reject the vaccine? What?
Do you listen to reggae? This is kind of a weird segue, but then thinking
I
about...
listen to Chronics. Yeah. I love Chronics. As long as I can...
So I'm hearing a lot of the messages in reggae music about getting outside of Babylon system, which is basically this governmental control that says take this.
The matrix,
It's
basically.
the matrix, basically. Yeah, so I think I guess they're on to something.
I mean, how do you get out of the Babylon system, though? People talk about getting out of the matrix like it's achievable, which it probably is. But, like, I mean, you have to go to certain extremes. You live in a constitutional system. You have to follow traffic rules. You have to get an identification card like everyone else. You have to get a driver's license. You need a fucking KRA pin, which for non-Kenyan listeners is what allows you to be taxed.
It's like an IRS.
Exactly. KRA is our version of the IRS, right?
Most people nowadays, I think they file nil return. That's also a meme.
Exactly. And like right now, they're kind of like cracking down, right, on all of those people who supposedly have no money but have cars. And they're filing nil returns every year.
Some of their messages are so funny. Like today, I saw one that was like, "How to be a whistleblower." Like, nigga, I'm not gonna whistleblower myself.
What the hell? KRA sends you emails on how to be a whistleblower?
It's like send the. It actually kind of is like a get out of jail free card. It's like shows you the blueprint for not getting caught. They're like send all the bank statements, all the audited reports and stuff like that. So that's
You know what
gonna
would
get
be
me.
funny if you read all of this about how to be a whistleblower and you like really took all of these tips to heart, and then it just so happens that you're a KRA employee and you want to reveal how like money is being embezzled within.
A lot of it that happens at the KRA.
Exactly, and then you just like whistleblower. And like KRA gets taken down by its own fucking set of tips, you know? That would
Like,
be funny.
days of your medicine.
Exactly. So like anyway, that's the Moderna Pfizer stuff, right? So like I personally think that it's really hard to make any kind of comment at this point because we really do not know. I mean, I read like Senator Rubio like the US Senate, right, like wrote a letter to Pfizer like asking them, can you please explain what's going on? That's the essence of it. I may or may not put a link in the description, you know, it depends on how I feel.
But
So,
back to your own sheep. In
yeah.
Kenya, something that we can confirm apparently is there is a new bill that suggests that when people get a divorce, they should split. That everyone should go with what they came with.
Right.
So
Right. Okay. So this raises a whole other interesting conversation.
if you're listening to this, what do you feel about that whole bill? Like, what do you think? Are you a woman or are you a man? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's justified? Women tend to be against this for some reason. They tend to be against that. They believe in the man. I mean, leaving with 50% of what the man.
Right. What's your opinion? That do you think that people should leave with wealth that was individually acquired, or do you think wealth should be shared equally? Noting that it's quite possible that one of the people was the sole breadwinner, right? So he may have acquired like most of the wealth, and having to share it 50-50 means that he's losing more.
Jeff Bezos, R.I.P. to your finances. His wife became a billionaire just from divorcing him.
Just from divorcing him, exactly. Now, this is an interesting conversation because it kind of like goes back to like something else that is even thornier, and it's the gender equality conversation. If the genders are equal, why is it that when there is a conversation about how wealth should be distributed post-divorce, that women generally tend to take one side of that argument, and men generally tend to take another?
Super interesting.
We have someone else.
Yeah, we have a caller on the line.
We have a caller on the studio.
It's my personal opinion. I think personally, if you ask me, it makes sense when you say like, behind in front of like a divorce, like we should go separate with what we came with. That makes sense. I would agree to it. My thing is, but then that's why the whole prenup thing happens. I'd be so fucking for a prenup because like
Yeah, like signing a prenup. For those who don't know what a prenup is, like this contract you sign right before marriage, like just like saying, oh yeah, if we ever divorce, you can't take the Ferrari.
The shortened version
or
of
the Vince.
prenuptial agreement. That's what prenup actually means. Prenuptial agreement.
Yes, correct.
so I feel like I would feel entitled to the wealth that was accumulated while you were married for this particular reason. And it also it really depends, because if I'm just a housewife, if I'm like your wife but I'm having my own career going on, if you wanna go like with whatever you got, I'm anti-bias. You get.
Right.
But then if I was a housewife, I was supposed to take care, give bath.
Right.
Yo,
You're doing all of these like the way I would define it is it's like sort of like unpriced labor, because you're not being paid for being a housewife. So the question is, how do I ascribe value to that when we're divorcing?
But what you do matters a lot.
Yeah,
for the wealth.
I'm the one who's taking care of the kids. I'm the one who's taking care of you.
Enabling that success.
Come home, you're stressed. I'm the one who's supposed to make you feel relieved. You get. Next day, we say you're ready for the world.
I gave birth. I took care of the child. Raising kids is a shit ton of work.
Exactly.
Sure.
I sacrificed my ambition. I mean, everyone, especially now in the 21st century, regardless of the gender, we all have ambitions. So like when I decide to be a housewife, that's why I say depend. If you let me be, do whatever you want to do. It's the kids, I give birth, there's a whole team of nannies. If I decide I'm going for a business trip for a whole week, it's no, objection or something. That's cool. If we're going 50-50 or something, even though the bills maybe.
Right.
But now if I'm a housewife and like, I don't think I want you working. I want you to take care of the kids. I want you to help them with their homework. I want you to sit there and go get them from school. You get?
That is super interesting, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I'm helping you build your world while still achieving the dream of having a...
So the wealth was not, even though it's in the husband's name,
Yeah.
it was built cumulatively, like by the combined effort.
I may not have built it directly, but I fucking contributed to it.
But this raises a question, and this is really the most important question here, if we're being honest, because it's where the whole legal conundrum comes from. Is it how the hell
Do you define
you price that? Yeah, like, so what is this? Do you take 50%? Do you take 40%? Like, what is a fair amount for you to go home with when we're divorcing?
Maybe they should find a way to like have the parties do like co-sign once they're married. Like whatever you own should be owned together.
Yeah, it's a 50-50. Actually, it's a 50-50 because there's a high chance for example, if we divorce while we're having young kids. I'm the one who's going to afford the kids. Babies and all that. I'm not going to be still. I'm carrying on the burden of, you guys, not forgetting I'd have to start on figuring, because if you're going to pay child support, you won't include me there.
Wait.
I'm going to get money. I did build my career. I was giving birth and popping out kids and all that.
Can we take a quick one to just define, like, what is the difference between child support and alimony?
Child support is, well, self-defining. So, it's to pay the kids' fees, pay their... alimony are payments to your spouse, so your former spouse.
So there is that.
Yeah, so alimony payments are very separate from child support, or they may be
But they
inclusive.
typically, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not exclusive most of the time.
Right, yeah. So, like, I'm not a legal expert, but what I know is that you can pay alimony to your former spouse for certain reasons, like if they were wholly dependent on you and
Exactly.
whatnot.
So if you are a housewife, most likely you will get alimony. That's just to throw that in there.
I feel like you are quite maybe with the most likely, because we're talking about Kenya.
Okay.
We're talking about black men.
True.
Who's gonna be like, you know what, you're my wife, you're my ex.
No, I mean,
I'm gonna send you 200K per month because of you.
No, I mean, I don't know about the legal climate in Kenya entirely, but I also have never heard of the concept of alimony in Kenya.
Maybe they call it something different.
I've heard of child support. I've never heard of alimony. I once heard of this case where Gideon Moy was getting divorced or something, and he had like pay his former wife who's white.
But let's be honest.
But
Does child support payments goes to who? The wife.
wife.
Right? She can manage it however she likes.
I know the thing is, guys, it's Kenya.
So she pockets up.
We are still fighting the child support. It doesn't come automatically.
Okay.
We might have to go through courts. You get? You guys, we're talking about Kenya. In reality,
I mean, nothing comes automatically, to be entirely honest. For example, if you don't pay a debt that you owe me, I'm going to take you to court anyway. So I guess like, you know, it's just par for the course.
I have a stupid joke that I can't resist throwing in there. You said nothing comes automatically, but there is premature ejaculators.
The only thing that comes automatically
Is a premature
prematurely ejaculating penis.
But yeah, I think that's
That needs to be trademarked.
Put that
I
on a
feel like
t-shirt.
we need to do a t-shirt thing, and we've had a
Merch.
conversation with this where we just like take interesting quotes from the podcast, put it in a t-shirt, and sell the t-shirt. Yeah, exactly. Nothing comes automatically except premature ejaculation. I would wear
on
that.
the streets of CBD in Nairobi walking with that, and I'm like, nigga, what?
I would wear
I
that.
want that. I
need
want
you
that.
to wear this.
But coming back to the main topic, I mean, the whole idea here was trying to figure out whether or not, or rather how wealth should be
Distributed amount.
distributed upon divorce,
Spouse.
right? So according to the court ruling that I have seen on social media, and again, you know, the funny thing about this shit is, you know, because I wasn't there at the court, and for some weird reason, I don't even think the court has a website and released an official statement on this. We're going entirely off of what we saw on Twitter and Instagram, but the whole idea was that
truth to it.
exactly the ruling was that in divorce, people should go with the wealth they individually accumulated.
I think that's fair, personally.
And the thorny issue here that was being raised was that if she was a housewife, she did not accumulate any wealth per se.
But she helped you accumulate.
So how do you figure out how much to give her? Because according to this ruling, she would go home penniless.
Go home with the chickens you brought.
Exactly. Like, she's been, like, imagine you had a housewife for the past, I don't know, 15 odd years. So, like, she gave birth, your kid's like 13 or 12 or whatever the fuck. And then you have a divorce. And you're like, oh yeah, the court says we go with whatever we accumulated. But this woman was
busting her
home
ass.
the whole time, not doing anything. So she goes home with nothing because materialistically speaking, she accumulated absolutely zilch. So that is a thorny topic because how the hell do you determine that?
I think there is a way. You know, the thing that always raises questions with things like these bills is like one comes out and then another comes out with a gray area that kind of is contradicted, because they did pass something like a bill that said women who were housewives and completely dependent on their spouses who were for support should get compensation. It was in the news not too long ago. And now this one has just come out. So there's always these gray areas that kind of intersect. And I feel like it's just the fact that the law is not fully observed in Kenya, that these things are passed, but they're not implemented.
Not to mention, even when court rulings happen, because court rulings would just be like law by precedent. You know, it's not an act. It's just a freaking court precedent. Like, you know how laws come into being? You're gonna have like the Constitution takes first priority, but then you also have acts of Parliament. This is like a Commonwealth thing for the listeners that are listening that are non-Kenyan. I don't know how the U.S. makes its constitution.
By the way, I want to
How
just give a
changeable
quick
it
shout
is.
out to our listeners. We did check the statistics and we found we have listeners in, if you hear your country, say hi. We have listeners in Mauritius, of all places. We have France. We have the UK.
We have listeners from France.
We have listeners from France.
I saw this really funny tweet online. It was from the APA. If you do academic writing, you'd know about APA citations. And the APA was like, avoid using the. So like
That was a funny
the
one.
French or the
mentally ill.
The mentally ill. Instead, use things that are inclusive, like people
with
experiencing
mental
mental illness.
illness.
And then this guy called Paul Graham is like the founder of Y Combinator, which is like an entrepreneurship incubator. He says, so from now it's people experiencing Frenchness.
So shout out to the people experiencing freshness. While
We love you.
we love you.
Please continue with the experience.
So yeah, talking about the jurisdictions in Kenya and how lax the implementation is.
Exactly. So now a law can come about either from, I mean, we have a lot of this shit. I'm remembering this from that one semester where I used to sleep through every class, where I learned a bit of like.
Shout out your lecturer if you remember the name.
Oh my god, that guy was knowledgeable but boring as hell. But yeah, so like he would say that, you know, we've got like acts of parliament, we've got like constitutional law, we've got like common law, which is like shit for some weird reason we inherited from the English. I don't know, but yeah. And then we've got like shit that comes from like precedents. Like for example,
They call them acts of God.
no. It's precedence in the sense that a case occurs, you take it to court, the judge rules in a particular way, and then based on that judge's ruling, any case afterwards that is similar to that case is going to rule the same because that precedent was set. You get?
The more you know.
And sometimes a judge can rule in a way that goes against an established law because the specifics of this case are such that he thinks his ruling is correct. And then every time a subsequent judge gets a case, it's like, oh yeah, if you look at Roe versus Wade or like you'll see like a lot of X versus Y cases. If you like look at legal history, they'll be like, in this case it was ruled like this in this case, and then they do the same thing. Exactly. So now that this case has been ruled in this way about how wealth should be distributed, if in the future some lady takes her husband to court because of divorce, I mean, this precedent is a very powerful precedent, right? Like we don't know. I mean, they might have somehow different situations, but it might be ruled in the same way. And what if this woman is just a housewife?
And one day, worst case scenario, we're the one who got married or that like, say 23, 24, 25. Wait, they haven't had any cousin at all. At best, this baby is coming from Rio or something. And if they get married for like, let's say other like 80 years, right? She's now 40, heading to 50 or probably 50.
Right.
If they're grown or they get in their 20s, she can't go back to you. She can't. You know, if you divorced when you were partly, you can do something. You can do some stuff. You still have a chance of trying.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
They feel it, bloomers and all shit, but I feel like at 40, 50, you feel defeated in life.
Yeah, what are you gonna do after giving 20 years of your life?
Yeah, it's even worse because now you can't do any shit for yourself.
It's interesting to think about though, like within those 10, 20 years, I feel like if you're a housewife, you should learn soft skills because there's different ways to get ahead in life. There's people with street smarts. There's people with book smarts. There's people who know how to network. And I feel like for a housewife, whatever your husband is doing,
she knows how to housewife.
She knows how to housewife for sure. She knows how to manage the help at home.
Right.
She knows how to organize things.
Right.
So I feel like once, this is just kind of like a tangent, but then it could be advice to any potential housewife who's maybe listening to us and going, oh crap, what am I going to do? So I think there's soft skills you gain throughout that. And then I feel like if you do get a chance, if it's still early enough, you should take advantage and include yourself to the point where even if you lose out in court, you don't lose out from the soft benefits you got. Like if you went to a convention or something like a trade fair with the husband or something like that, you managed to get contacts with maybe someone else's wife and whatever. So I think that's the reason, even though the court might be against you, or like the ruling might be against you because you've been a housewife for all these years.
Right.
It's in your best interest to kind of like not walk away with the tangible stuff, but then make sure you have, you've been gaining some soft wealth. I think you can call it
Right.
goodwill, and then also some reputation, I suppose. So I think that using that, you could say that if the woman is kind of smart or conscious about her place in terms of, hey, I'm not doing that much with my life, then I think even with the court ruling, I mean, it might be unjust or unfair to some people. I think most women will be able to get out of, as long as, because this is talking about people with something to split at the end of the day, right? Like it's not a farmer who has, okay, farmers in the U.S. are rich.
You know what I think? And this is going to be a controversial opinion.
It seemed like you were in deep thought, so this is going to be a good one.
Yeah. I think prenuptial agreements should be mandatory. In fact, not only should they be mandatory, but there should be like a sort of template for prenuptial agreements that covers the most common things that you would want to agree on before marriage. And just like you would sign a marriage contract and do marriage vows while doing a wedding, then you should sign a prenuptial agreement and agree on some of the most basic terms. Like, for example, what percentage of wealth are we both going away with if we ever get divorced? Let's figure that out now, right now. Or, yeah, exactly. And we can even have like, we can even have a template for exactly what the standard distribution ratio is. But then if the couple wants to like work out a different distribution ratio, you know, they can do that. But if they're okay, it's like, oh yeah, let's just do 50-50 because that's the template, then they can do that.
It's consensual. That's a
Exactly.
great idea.
Exactly.
It's gonna give a clear separation because it's gonna be like, okay, so we're here finally, and this is what we find on.
I love the way you say finally. It's like, it's been a long day without you, my friend.
You're setting yourself for the journey. It's like, I'm doing this for that day, and that day when it gets here, that's why I'm doing this. You get like
So the law should there should be provisions that it should be a necessity, but then I feel like most people wouldn't want to. I feel like most people know they can have prenuptial agreements, but they don't want to because it's almost like saying, "Hey, we're going to divorce, by the way." But let me just be prepared.
I feel like actually
What-
it's being more.
In my line of work, clients sign contracts. Okay, I'm not gonna go into the details of kind of work
Well,
I
I
do.
mean, every business has contracts, so we're
Right.
good.
But every contract has an exit clause. Say if you were to exit this contract, you have to pay a certain consideration, or you have to give a certain amount of due notice.
Even job contracts actually have termination clauses.
Marriage contracts don't seem to have an exit clause, which is rather peculiar.
It's
if
very
you think
peculiar.
about it.
Oh wow!
So prenuptial agreements, if you think about it, are the exit clause that all marriage contracts should have.
Take that to the bank. How is it that we, in this like 2 minutes, have come up with that? It makes you wonder what the law.
What the fuck are you officials doing up there?
Like what?
Making these laws.
Like legit, these people are more. They go to parliament, throw chairs at each other. Like I don't even do that. Like
You don't even throw chairs,
chairs, like-
and you're not even that special. You know, like you're not like a whole MP or anything.
and
You're
there's
just like a
nothing
regular
I
guy.
could do it if I wanted to, no consequence. But then the people who are actually supposed to be making laws, and we have people here on the podcast who have already come up with a solution.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. One thing I know about these things, like I like the football analogy. It's very easy to figure out what could have gone wrong, what could have gone right. If you're sitting on the sidelines, if you're in the game playing, shit is harder. If you're actually a lawmaker in the shit of it, I mean, there are like multiple factors. It's not just about the actual things that you think would make the most sense, but it's also about vested interests
Fine.
and also the way the system works. Like a lot of people I know go into politics or the government with the purest of hearts and the purest of intentions, wanting to change things, and then they realize there's a whole system of scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, that they have to navigate to get what they want. And many of them go over to the dark side, to borrow the Star Wars term, you know.
Here's a crazy.
So we can come here. It's easy sitting here in on our couch to figure out all the solutions to the world's problems. But when it comes to actual implementations, you know, the devil is in the details.
But you know, there's a use for people like that. Like, I'm trying to think right now, sideline observers, because they have all the solutions. You could get people from Bezia Jamba to go to like startup board funds and stuff like incubators and stuff like that. What's your opinion? And like,
Never blow up and get popular. We should do a Bezia Jaba live show.
That people of Beretta or something.
it's here, Baraza. It's at Jivanji. It was at Jivanji or something.
Yeah, people are asking the common one and see art. The opinions and certain things. Yeah, and do something. Beretta or something.
I don't know if it was open Baraza, but I witnessed one of them in person. Wow. Yeah, it was in Jivanji Gardens. It was at Jivanji Gardens actually.
Okay, so funny story. One of these funniest, because I used to go to school
The name.
all the way in Parklands. I feel like that's general enough. I was gonna figure out which school it was in Parklands. But-
Parkland's voice that sounds like this. How do you describe a voice actually? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There he is.
Where does guy go to?
And then like, nice. He has a whole team of people working like that for Wall Street.
We found you.
It's like, we
Yeah.
found that fucker. Where's the name? No. Where's the name again? They just
Yeah.
know who it is, but they know this.
I used to go to school in Parklands, and because I used to live very far from Parklands, I had to go to town first, and then go to Parklands, because like there's a whole connection.
that.
It's hard to think going on, right? But I noticed something because when I was getting to town, I had to pass by the archives. Because the archives is like the center of the universe or something. And everyone, exactly, everybody who's in town knows where the archives are, and that that Mr. Price, with the public toilet that's right next to the archives.
I didn't know about the public toilet.
The public toilet is so freaking inconspicuous because it's surrounded by shoe shiners.
I know it now. I just didn't know.
It's just shoe shiners around a public
I
toilet.
thought it was a shoe shiner thing.
Archive events used a lot. There's a certain part of
You can actually walk.
Yeah.
a certain part of archive that is actually the archive because that's where people wait for people.
Have you ever been there, by the way? Inside archive?
I mean,
I've been inside it.
Super interesting.
I was inside it when I was in high school,
Super
right?
interesting.
And it back then they had this promotion where it was 20 bob for a ticket, and I paid 20 bob when I got in, and you would see like artifacts.
Amazing.
You would see documents from like back in 1890. Like it's literally an archive. It's like a museum of the history of Kenya and our cultural history and our colonial history and all of that shit, right? But anyway, so like I had to go through the archives to get to Parklands. Every time I used to go to school, it was like at like 7-ish, 6:30-ish in the morning, right? I would see this weird huddled crowd of men, almost exclusively men, near the archives, and there was like, it's a weird crowd, and then, you know, just as quickly as it starts at like freaking 8 a.m. it disbands, and everybody goes their own way. I was like, what the fuck does this crowd discuss every day, right? So, one of these fine days, you know, I'm like, I can be late for this class. You know what? I can be late. I'm not gonna. Nothing's gonna happen. You ever have one of those situations where you suddenly,
Like,
you know,
why
come
not?
to the realization that if I'm purposely tardy for this, I'm not gonna die. You know, nothing's gonna happen, right?
It's usually the start of a very creepy story.
Yeah, exactly. It's the start of a whole roller coaster.
I feel like the whoever, like if you believe in God, whoever is just watching you make that decision. You're like, I'm not gonna die. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If there's a movie of your life,
okay, that's
if there's a movie of your life, this is where they pause and then Morgan Freeman comes in and is like,
At
and
that
at this point,
he knew. You fucked.
exactly.
So you found out you decided. Let me go investigate.
Exactly. And I went and listened. And I do not kid you. These guys were talking about the politics of the day. This was a whole fucking baraza happening on the street. And I'm telling you, these are people who do not know each other. This guy works in some shop. This guy works in some construction site. These are not middle class people. These are working class, like low working class people, like regular people, like people with fucking accents, people who can't speak English. They have a fucking newspaper. They have a fucking, a couple copies of the Standard, a couple copies of the Daily Nation. And they're like, apana. And back then, you know, when I was going to high school, and this will give you a clue about when I was going to high school, Mwai Kibaki was a prominent figure, right? Because at the time, he was vying for the presidency, right? Like, actually, Mwai Kibaki vied for the presidency, I believe, twice. So I believe this was the second time. Because
You mean vied unsuccessfully?
What?
Vied unsuccessfully?
I don't. Has Mwai Kibaki ever lost the election?
I believe
I am ignorant. in
I think
this,
he
so
did.
I would like to.
He's been in politics since the 80s, I think. Something like that. So he was always kind of involved. And
Okay, so let me put it this way: it was the second time he won the election.
all right, cool.
Right? It was the second time, and he was vying, and they were like detailing and arguing about, like, you know, the merits of Mwai Kibaki as the next president versus who was it, Uhuru Kenyatta or whoever.
Raila.
Yes, 92 and 97. He was.
Yeah, he's been there in a minute. He's been there.
Exactly, it's been there, done that. You know, R.I.P. Mwai Kibaki, you were a legend. But yeah.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's so funny because on our first episode, we were making fun. We were like, if Mwai Kibaki was, you know, having sex, it'd be like, mafia.
But he had a very soothing tone, though. It's a very soothing tone. If someone tells you, mafia cuckoo, you get it. If someone tells you, mafia cuckoo, you're like, oh.
If Wacky Baggy was the guy in prison trying to fuck you, you might just give it up.
We talked about this at the beginning. We talked about this at the beginning.
But like, anyway, the whole concept of this, because we were talking about Wacky Baggy, and I was just saying that I realized, just to come back, we're coming back to the mature conversation, guys. So like, just to come back, I realized that, you know, these guys hold informal barazas smack in the middle of town, talking about the political topic of the day. And these are people who I would presume are not university educated. They don't necessarily have like white collar jobs, but they have some brilliant opinions. Because I was listening to them and I was like freaking mind blown. I mean, at the time I was like 17, 18. Sure, I was pretty green behind the ears.
Anything would have been
But
impressive.
still, you know, I think at the time I knew a decent amount, or like I was like decently well read to know it, in order to like appreciate a good opinion when I hear one. You get? And I was like, fuck, these people actually know. Why aren't these people on TV?
Exactly.
Why is it that when I open the TV and I listen to the breakfast show, I don't hear such good ideas?
Because they're always good ideas. But there's
Exactly.
something about talking to the local Mwananchi, quote unquote. I love talking to local Mwananchi. Doesn't it make you feel like you're part of the country? Because a lot of us nowadays, we're kind of sucked into our own microcosms, living on the internet.
Our own echo chamber.
Echo chambers, exactly. But then when you talk to local Mwananchi, for example, like a driver, a cleaner, you get to hear like, I don't know, if, for me it feels like I'm part of the country, like a bit more. You know, because I'm actually, those are the people that vote, as we talked about earlier. Those are the
Right.
people who actually make a difference. They're the people who go to rallies, they're the people who like loot in case it goes wrong. But yeah.
Well, I would say that with such things, like it does help to listen to the common one and chi, especially if you're like in a leadership position, because just like if you're in a company, you have no idea, or you don't have the full picture of what happens on the ground. But of course, your employees are gonna have the full picture. They're gonna know 100%. Of all of the company's problems, what can be optimized or can't be optimized. If you're a leader, the people in your jurisdiction, whether it is a county or a constituency or the whole country, to you know, so to speak, these people are gonna know exactly what's happening on the ground, right? And if you could find a way to just plug in and listen to their opinions. Now, the problem with this particular mode of communication or this mode of information gathering is that there's a lot of noise. Because, you know, with all due respect to the common one, and more often than not, the common one and she has nothing meaningful to say.
Oh God, but you're right. You're right.
But every once in a while,
it's
the
the
common one
golden
and she gives you a gold nugget. True. It's like digging for gold. So if you can find a way to dig through the noise and get at the gold nuggets, Jesus freaking Christ.
you know what's crazy?
Efficiency as a leader would be doubled or tripled.
You know what's crazy? It's kind of like you will hear that golden nugget and you'll be like, let me give this guy an audience. But the moment you do that, they start spewing all kinds of other things. Like, it's almost as if you give them, you tell them, hey, that was a good idea. They'll be like, oh, okay, I could do another one. But then it's absolute.
It reminds me of a Family Guy episode. If you watch Family Guy, you know there's this dog called Brian. So in this particular,
Ryo.
exactly, I need a I need a goat and brio or something.
Yeah.
I need a goat and brio. Why
That
don't
sounds like
you
a
need a
weekend plan. That sounds like a weekend plan. I need a good time, Bryo. Bryo.
This is some best
Wet Bryo.
Wet Friday.
Bryo.
The Wet Friday is the name of our first episode, by the way. And
You gotta listen to that.
So Brian, in this particular snippet, Brian is on a truck with a bunch of Mexicans. And then he asks the Mexican a question and the Mexican answers in English. And Brian is like, oh my God, you understand English? And the Mexican's like, no, I just know that sentence that I said and this sentence explaining it. And then Brian asks a follow-up question. and then the Mexican answers in Spanish. So that is kind of reflecting the common one, isn't she? Every once in a while, they say something brilliant. You're like, oh, so you're a brilliant person. But being a brilliant person is not the same as saying brilliant
And
things.
then they go back to factory settings or Migori settings.
You can say brilliant things every once in a while, and then after that,
Yeah, there's an expression of that. Even a broken clock is right once a day, I think. Yeah. Which is not.
Speaking of which, because this is gonna ruffle some feathers, it kind of raises the question of what defines the common one inch, because we're gonna be like, oh, so you're saying the common one inch is stupid? Well, I'm the common one inch, and I am not stupid. Nobody is saying the common one inch is stupid. People, what we're saying is that on average, most people are gonna have like some brilliant thoughts on certain topics that they know a lot about, but they're gonna have either mediocre or less than mediocre thoughts on most
But
of
if
the
you think
things.
about it, common means there's nothing outstanding about it. Philosophically speaking, a teacher of mine used to say, back in high school, used to say, common sense is not that common.
Right.
So the fact that you have good ideas probably means that you differ from the common one, which is just like the commoner. But anyways, speaking of common one, there are some statistics that came out about the common man and woman in Kenya when it comes as it relates to their
Sexual partners. Right.
Is it of the
so
gonorrhea discovery?
it's so funny that a lot of the studies that are being surfaced on the internet have to do with sex in some capacity,
Sex
whether
sells.
it is the death of a certain member of the LGBTQ community, or it is the spread of a certain superhero bacterium. Starts with a G.
Superhero bacteria, SHB.
Or
Starts with a G.
that's the G. It has to
be
be
a
the G of fucking STIs, you know?
Teach kids to avoid that.
Or in this case,
Gonorrhea.
it just happens to be the number of average sexual partners that everyone has.
There was an argument that said they should split up that study to look at the difference between men in certain age groups, and they felt that men who were older would probably skew the statistics towards the higher number.
Well, of course, the older you are as a man, the more sexual partners you are.
As
you
it
have.
should be.
I was having this argument with someone. I was letting her know that actually most men who are young and broke and have no social status,
They don't get
sexually
none.
starved. But she wouldn't agree. It just so happens to be here.
I mean, it's even in a
Yeah,
song.
now
It's even in a song. They say broke boys don't deserve no pussy. What do they say next?
broke boy don't deserve no pussy.
Say it. I know that's right.
The reason why I wasn't paying to aid is, and actually spoken to you, no matter what level you are as a man, is always a baby of fucking. Or in this case, you.
Do you agree?
I don't know. I was sexually frustrated for a long time in my life. And when I do the wrong admission to make on a podcast, but yeah.
Have you seen someone pregnant and you're like,
What's the dad?
fucking with you pregnant? What were they fucking thinking? How did they end up?
Like a crippled woman? Like what are we doing here? Like a crippled woman? Or like
It fucking was like, it could be even like a
Sexy baby.
mentally, you can say.
mentally ill woman? Mentally retarded. People experiencing mental illness. People experiencing Frenchness.
And you're like,
You see that someone experiencing Frenchness, like, who made you pregnant?
and I mean, we're talking about people experiencing that in Kenya. So they're on the streets. I mean, in US and all that, other spaces, they're taken care of, I mean,
They have a lot there.
I don't think like in Kenya people are not being taken care of, but there are people who are.
Definitely not in welfare.
you we call them when there was zero.
Right.
And you're like
Yeah, when there was Zimo is a Samuel term meaning crazy person.
bathed in like I don't know how long.
But they still got some action.
And then
Oh,
years. I mean,
Oh my God! Someone did that
who
role.
did that? Who did that?
I mean, the way I think about it is that, because like a woman who hasn't taken a shower in a very long time, and I know this is gonna be controversial, but like a woman isn't like men, in general, are more willing to have sex with a woman who hasn't taken than women are to have sex with a man who hasn't taken a shower in a long. Like men are the cheapest, most low standard freaking low barrier to entry creatures.
Some might
on the
even
fucking
fetish
planet.
that.
Like, we will have sex with a fucking table.
Some might even fit
It-
in.
it's attractive enough.
Action.
Yeah, even despite being at a rock
that
bottom.
means you're having action.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
Right.
Doesn't matter where you are. Are you jobless? Are you a drunkard? Are you a fucking, I don't know, retard or something?
But you don't need skills to get sex as a man.
I think the problem here is
And confidence.
no. I think the problem here is actually.
Do you though? Or do you need skills to get a specific type of woman?
No, I mean like when it comes to like sexual partners and the number and stuff like that, you would have to be in a mental state where you're like, hey, I can get a woman. But if you're jobless, broke, I don't know, you probably won't have that much.
But what she's saying is that even the jobless broke have one.
And I agree.
That's what you do. They feel like these babes, they're having a nigga in their home who is the baby dad or something, and the baby is the one who is hustling. The nigga is just a drunkard.
Right.
But
I wonder what life is like for these
and
guys.
this babe would
I wonder.
you
I wonder
guys-
too.
You guys,
Is someone willing to tell us in the comment section?
We should
What is
interview
life
one.
like?
We should interview one. Hey, let's put this.
What is life like
Let's do it in the radio way. Do you have a mother?
when you're jobless and just basically
Leeching. Or
your woman is providing for everything and you're there and you're like, I backed this one.
how does he
You know? I mean, I'm not saying it's like, you know, to use the colloquial term in Kenya, a mumama
Mama.
or a sugar mummy. That's the general term. It's just like basically you're like, yeah, the woman will go out and provide. I just care about the sex. But more specifically, like the whole argument here, or rather what we were going for, is that, and I still stand by this, despite me agreeing with a lot of what you're saying, I still stand by this. Certain factors will determine the number of average sexual partners you have. And these factors for a man are amount, like wealth,
Yeah.
and status. And a lot of the time, a good proxy for status is age. Because, I mean, we know on average women prefer older men. But also, just generally speaking, as you grow older, you tend to accumulate more wealth and more status.
Actually.
And therefore, older men are going to have more average sexual partners. Not to mention, cheating is kind of like halal in Kenya.
absolutely.
So even married men are going to do this. It's kosher, you know? Absolutely haram. It's absolutely halal.
I cheat, you cheat, we all cheat.
Let's cheat.
One night, no, cheat. Like, wake up in the morning, I was like, oh, it's about that time.
Exactly.
Go friends, hey man, what are we cheating today?
Exactly. No, actually, what I found most interesting about that study, if I'm being honest, is that the average man in Kenya has 7 sexual partners,
Too high, too low.
but the average woman in Kenya has 2.3 sexual partners. I'm like, who the fuck is fucking who? Because if the average man is fucking 7 women and the average woman is fucking 2.3 women, like, I'm trying to understand how this disparity arises.
You know about the
And
law
if
of-
anyone is mathematically inclined, please explain it to me. Because it would be either, for example, that I have a man that is fucking 7 women. But for each of those women, they are fucking this man that is fucking each of them, and another man, and a third of a third man, you know, because it's 2.3, right? So, the man is fucking 7 women, but each of these women is only fucking 2.3 women.
I feel like this is based, I mean, I'm cleaning this off my ass, but I feel like it's because women or the female population, we are always ahead of you guys. You get
In what sense?
In what sense?
population of maybe
Or you think there's more women
more women
than men?
I don't
So
think
you
so.
gotta feel like for that. Actually, it is.
I don't think
But I
so.
don't think the ratio is 7-2 though.
I don't think so. I think in Kenya, it's 50-50.
No, it's not. It's
No,
not.
Kenya is not
No
50-50.
way. in the
Actually,
world.
let me point this out. In the world, the average is actually 1.1 men
Yeah.
to 1 woman. But that's because of countries like China and all these predominantly Muslim countries where they do have femicide and they have a preference for young. So those countries have a very high population.
Okay, listen to
India
this.
has
Listen to this. I
1.1
just want to listen. I just want you to listen to this one for a quick minute. I just got this off of a Google search.
I was
You
on
could-
Wikipedia.
You know, if no, it's a Google search. So I'm looking like literally the first result in the SERP, the search engine results page, right? So if you're in the comments, you can search for this exact phrase. Are there more women than men in Kenya? And the first snippet I'm getting is that the sex ratio in Kenya in 2021 is 98.77 males for every 100 females. So there are no. Get me right though. Listen to me. So there are 27.32 million males and 27.66 million females, which means that the percentage of the female population is 50.31% compared to 49.69% male population, which means that there are 0.34 million more females than males. You know what that means? That in a population of 50 million Kenyans, approximately, there are only 340,000 more females. I don't think that's such a significant difference that we're going to say, oh, there's so many more women.
No, I think that's
But here's what I think. The answer is simple. It's one word: underreporting. You know about the rule of threes? For like body counts, for men, divide by 3. For women, multiply by 3.
Oh, right. I get what you're saying, because like the way they would get like how many sexual partners a man has versus a female has is because ideally for this survey they like give them a questionnaire or something. But women tend to like underreport how many sexual partners they have, and men overreport because men want to look like, yeah, I fucked every woman on this fucking block.
I even fucked you, the reporter.
And the reporter is like, when? I don't remember. Why is it like a woman again? But yeah, exactly. So I mean that's definitely a factor. But also, maybe it's also a factor that just men are more promiscuous than women on average. But I'm not saying in the sense that men have more sex than women, because I mean, I don't know this. But in the sense that men have more sexual partners. I would venture to, suggest that women, when they are having having infidelity or whatever, they pick someone that they can have sex with long term. Or like someone that they can have a fling with long term. While men are like, I just want new pussy every day. For a woman, it's just like, I have a guy and a side nigga who's doing what my main nigga isn't doing. For a man, it's like, I want a different pussy on Monday, I want a different pussy on Tuesday, I want a different pussy on Wednesday. For a woman, it's like, okay, this guy gives me money, but he's not satisfying me, so I need a side nigga. Or I have a husband, so women have fewer sexual partners because for them, what's more important is like having someone that they can rely on for different things, in which case they can consolidate it. Well, for men, it's about having the adventure of the experience. You want to experience different pussies.
That makes a lot of sense. I think we're pretty much exhausted. What was on the thing? Do we have any memes to review? Or have we explored enough?
I mean, we should probably review memes where we're like at the 1.5 hour mark.
I think that's good enough to.
I think this is fucking brilliant. This is probably our best episode yet.
This has been a good one.
I had a lot of fun in this one.
It keeps on getting better. Let's
yeah.
First episode, I feel like it gets better. Every episode you're like,
we're flowing.
God, this is better than the last one. Even my guys, I feel like the episodes that you guys voice. The father reported is she first one or something.
Well,
that was our first one.
No, it's not. No, that's for sure. It's not our first episode.
I can tell you for sure it's getting.
That's nice to hear, man.
Yeah.
That's too nice to hear.
So, yeah, guys, it was fantastic being with you here. This was like, I don't know, episode 3 probably of the ThinkShack. It's like there's another episode before this I should post. But in case it's not episode 3, it's episode 2. So take whatever makes you sleep at night. And we will see you in the next episode.
Have a good one, guys. Stay safe. Avoid gonorrhea.
Avoid super gonorrhea in particular.
When you look up in the sky and there's a hero you don't identify,
super gonorrhea.
Run and hide.
This is wrong. That is totally supposed to go on a t-shirt. So when you look up in the sky and there's a hero you can't identify, super gonorrhea, running high. Anyway, goodbye, guys.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Cheers.